Welcome to the Empty Nest Empires podcast. My guest today is Sheri McIntyre. Now, Sheri survived the unthinkable, a ruptured brain aneurysm, and then a stroke during emergency surgery. It was New Year's Day, 2016. The night before, she was just fine and ringing in the new year with friends. And the very next day, she was on her way to emergency brain surgery as neurosurgeons worked frantically to save her life. Can you imagine? The months and the years since then have been filled with hard work for Sheri and revelation, and she's even written a book about her experience. I'll tell you about that a little bit later. I hope her story of survival will give you hope and let you know that no matter your circumstances, there is hope for a better tomorrow. But mainly, I hope that as you listen to Sheri, her words will make you think. Okay, your nest is empty, or it will be within a few years. So now what? Whether you know it or not, we are building empires. Empires of faith, family, fun, fitness, and of course, finance. And those empires are the legacy we leave for our loved ones. I'm Tammy Romani, an empty nester mom, grandma, and entrepreneur with a vision for ever greater things in the years ahead. It's never too late, and there is no limit to what we can do. I'm so happy you're here. Now let's get to building. Sheri reached out to me on Instagram. She sent me a message, and that was before I was even talking about this podcast. She probably didn't know anything about what I do, but here's what she said to me. Hi, Tammy. I found your account on Facebook, and what you posted resonated with me. So now I'm following you here. I'm learning Instagram and some of Facebook again. I have had a brain aneurysm rupture that led to a stroke. I post a lot on Insta and Facebook. Well, I just wanted to say hello. And I said, Sheri, thank you for connecting with me. I pray you are making great strides in healing your brain. Thank you. It's mostly a physical thing, Sheri replied. But people see me and think I'm fine. Wrong, LOL. I hope you're doing good. And then we chatted some more about how important it is to understand that everyone's going through something, even if it doesn't appear that way. And, this was last summer. And after a while, I thought, oh my word, the world needs to hear Sheri's story. And so I'm bringing it to you now. And I want to remind you of first of all, the power of social media and the connectability that's available there. Sheri found me. Sheri reached out to me. We connected. We had a conversation. And I invited her to be a guest on this podcast. That's something that I talk about inside the Empire Builders Collective, and I won't go into that right now. But I think we have something amazing at our fingertips that we are not utilizing. And so I'm so grateful that Sheri reached out to me, that we became friends, that we made that connection, and now that we've had this great conversation, and we will continue to stay in touch. So before I dive into this interview with Sheri, I'd like to read you some statistics. There is a brain aneurysm rupturing every 18 minutes. Ruptured brain aneurysms are fatal in about 40% of cases. Of those who survive, about 66% suffer some permanent neurological deficit. Approximately 15% of patients die before reaching the hospital. Those are pretty grim statistics, but what I want you to hear in Sheri in this interview is her hope, is her fight, the fight and the grit that she had to survive and to get better. Now, her daughter was a 16-year-old high school student at the time, and she just wanted to be there for her daughter. And wow, her story is really one of the strength of the human spirit, the healing power of prayer, and Um, there's a lot we can address in this, but I think you need to hear it from Sheri. So here we go. Here's my interview with Sheri McIntyre. I am so happy that you reached out to me and that we could tell your story, because I think that a lot of people are at a loss as to um, how to treat someone who's had a traumatic brain injury or a stroke or
Oh,
an
yes,
aneurysm. And then also those who may be in recovery from a traumatic experience like that. Wow,
yes.
they really need to hear your mindset and how you came around. So I'm
Mm.
excited to get started. Let's just I read your book
Okay,
yesterday, and
good.
thank you so much for sending it to me. It was very
You're
helpful.
welcome. Yeah, I
Yes.
want because I don't think people understand and what it's about until they read it.
Oh, absolutely. And I will ask you in a minute about that title and how you came up with it. But first of all, I just want to say, I mean, you really have survived the unthinkable. I mean,
Yes,
most people when they think of that, it's oh, my life is over. But you sometimes even, I mean, you even mentioned that now you see it as a blessing.
yes,
Let's start by just telling your story briefly. Can you go back to that New Year's Day of 2016 and tell us
sure.
what happened?
Well, I was in the bathroom. I have a 16-year-old daughter, and she, I guess I was in there for a while. She knocked on the door. She asked me if I was all right. I said, yeah, get your father, because I did not want to worry her. But
Mm,
I must have known something was wrong. And then when I came out, my hands started going up and down uncontrollably. And as my husband came into the room, and I said, "Call the ambulance," with like, "Call the ambulance now," and I fell and passed out, and that was it.
do you
That's
remember
all I
that?
remember.
But you
No,
do remember that much.
yeah, I remember that.
Wow.
Thank God I wasn't driving,
Yes.
and they were home, or I would have been dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
and a lot of people, I think, what happens to them is they die, but through technology, that are learning so much more.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Mm.
Well,
But
I did, like I said, I read your book yesterday, and I just found that it was such a good reminder that life throws you a curveball, and sometimes it's a really big one. Like this was so
oh yeah,
huge. Can you, in looking back, can you think, is there any way to ever be prepared for something like this?
uh, well, if you have a test done to your brain, they can see if you have an aneurysm growing in there. It's a colored MRI, but
Hmm.
they don't give them unless
No.
even my sister before this, she was having headaches. A lot of people have severe headaches.
Hmm.
I don't, and I never have.
So you had
And
no indication that
none,
anything was coming. Oh my.
no,
Wow.
nothing. And I was in the best shape of my life,
Wow.
and I didn't know. And so anyway, but well, yeah, that is how you find out with the colored MRI. I have
Yeah.
to speak clearly because of the stroke. I want everybody to understand me.
Well, you're doing very well. So you let me
Thank
know
you.
if you get tired, okay? And we can even
Yeah,
continue this another day. But I
yeah.
just want people to hear your heart. And let's dive into why you called this book Compassionate Snob.
Oh,
It's kind of confusing to me.
it
Were
is,
you a
but you'll
snob?
get it after. No, but image, I was surrounded by image.
You
I
were
used to
surrounded by
work,
image. Okay.
yeah, I used to work as a hairstylist in a very high end salon.
Mm,
So image was all around me. And we saw a lot of clients that were acted like they were all that, had everything together, and right? And so I tried to act like they did. And that is why the word snob came to me in my mind. But I am much more compassionate than a snob.
Yes.
So
Wow.
I named that. It's interesting, huh?
Yeah, it is. It's quite a play on words, because I could see how, wow, how extra devastating this might be to someone like you who is in this industry where it's all about image. It's all about how you look every day. You're presenting yourself. Your hair is done, your makeup is done, and then suddenly you have a gash in the back of your head. You've had emergency surgery, and you have
shaved
no
my
hair.
head.
Shaved your head.
Yeah.
And this was not even like some people who are fighting other illnesses where they know it's coming. They kind of prepare for it. You had no way to prepare for that.
None.
Shock. What did it feel
None.
like to you when you looked in the mirror for the first time?
Well, you have to remember, my brain was not right for a very long time.
Yes.
And so I really, I was always in a good mood. I did every single thing that they asked me to do to get better. But I don't think my nerves in my head, my nerves in my brain were going back right then. Well, I came home after 3 months, right?
Wow.
And I said to my husband, I said, I feel like half my tongue was tingly and my side of my face. He goes, oh, that is probably the nerves going back. And I think it was because before I did not have a filter.
Okay, so you would say some inappropriate things?
Yes, yes.
Right.
Which I would never say to people before this happened.
Now, is
to
this
me.
common with brain injury patients, do you think?
No, well, I think what happens is everywhere in your brain, right, there is a different section that controls a different function. So it depends on where the bleed happens, what is affected. So, I went to one of the best hospitals in the world, as you know. We're very close to Boston. So my husband said Centered Mascara. And so I was fortunate that I went there.
Yeah.
Because that's what they saved my life.
Yes, we do. So why don't you explain to us exactly what your injury was? So you were just in the bathroom and something happened in your brain. You had a genetic, it's called an AVM. Okay.
Intravenous malformation.
Okay.
It stands for.
Okay.
I don't even know if I'm saying it correctly.
I'll have to look that up. It's probably a very long word.
Yeah.
Now, how is that different
That's why
from?
they call it AVM.
But you also described having a stroke. Now, did a stroke follow that, or are they kind of? Oh, really? So you had an aneurysm called. Your type of aneurysm was an AVM, and then that a stroke followed that. Wow.
Yes, it was from the operation.
Oh.
When because they gave me a craniotomy and opened up my head. And I guess it was very gruesome from what I've been told. But so I will never look at Jacqueline's the same way. And anyway, so they opened up my head and operated on my cerebellum. If it was a bleed, the doctor said in another place, that would be very dangerous. And they told them how grave it was when they had to do this. And so, but I'm lucky because I've recovered. And you can, with a lot of hard work, you can, because of neuroplasticity.
Yes. So you worked very hard. Now, let me just go back a minute because you're not even 4 years out from this. So I
No.
just want to commend you. The fact that it even occurred to you to write a book about your
Yeah.
experience. And from what I read, early on, you felt this calling like, I have to write this in a book. What do you
Yeah.
think that came from?
Well, for me, it was God, I guess. I don't know. But I just had to write a book. I didn't hear voices or anything like that. I just woke up at the coma and I kept saying, I'm going to write a book.
Wow. Did you know that it would be about this? That it
Yeah.
would be about your experiences?
Yeah.
And it's a message of hope, I believe, to
Yeah.
those who have really suffered any kind of a stroke or a traumatic brain injury. What
Yeah.
does it feel like to put on the mindset of, I am going to recover, and not get lost in the tediousness of everything? You had to
I
learn to walk again. You
Yeah.
had to learn to talk again.
Yeah.
I can't even
Hmm.
imagine how
Hmm.
tedious and exhausting
Yeah.
that was.
Never mind writing a book.
Yeah.
Like my sister always says, Sheri, you never even read a book. I never mind write one.
Right.
So that right there is a miracle in
Yes,
itself,
it is.
and it is. But I feel like I had to write it, and I was isolated for a long time, and
Mm.
because everyone had to go back to their jobs, right? My husband had to go back to work. My sister went back to work. Everybody. So here I was alone in the house. What are you going to
Wow.
do?
Yeah.
Yeah. You can watch TV and things like that, which I don't watch TV. It's a, it was like being shot in the head.
Hmm.
And like I woke up, like it woke me up.
Hmm.
That's why I say I'm grateful, because I was living like, no problem, whatever. And so now I'm not like that. I am very focused on what I
Hmm.
have to do, on healing myself and educating myself. And I don't know where they came from, but I am very driven.
Yes.
I
Well, I
do a
can tell
lot of
that.
things. I do a lot of things that people probably, I think that they think they're weird. They would never do that. Like, I got involved with politics, and then I realized, oh, no. That is not a good thing to get involved in. It's too much negativity, right?
Hmm.
So I stopped that. And then I got involved with the Lions Club, and they were very good, but I went there by myself.
Hmm.
And same with the exercise. I exercised at the local senior center with
Mm-hmm.
the older people.
Mm-hmm.
And guess what? They were so welcoming to me.
Hmm.
So I love it there, and I still go all the time. I used to take the because I couldn't drive. So I used to take the the transportation from the senior center,
Mm-hmm.
and they used to pick me up and drop me off, and that was my daily event.
Yeah. And then, but you weren't a senior. How old were you when this
No,
happened?
um, 54.
Oh, wow.
Mm,
Wow.
yeah.
Yeah. So
So I have
you were hanging with the 80-year-olds at the senior center.
yeah, yeah. Hmm. And they
Wow.
love me, and guess what? I love them.
Mm-hmm. I'll bet.
And but a lot of people that have problems won't go there that are my age. I
Mm.
didn't care.
Mm-hmm.
I
So
just
again, that was
focused on getting better.
a mindset thing that you had to overcome.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
So I do that, and I could, like how you say, I couldn't walk, right?
Right.
So they taught me how to walk, and so and I used to walk around the neighborhood like holding hands with my sister, holding on to someone.
I'm
I
sure.
couldn't not do it by myself. But then I slowly, you know what I did. It's in the book.
Yeah.
And so
Well,
I used to walk around with carriage.
yes, tell us that story. You stole a shopping cart from.
Oh my God. That's so funny. Yeah.
So
Get better.
I love this story because, hey, you got to do what you got to do, right? You had
Oh,
been
yeah.
asking your family to buy you a stroller or something that you could push rather than your
Yeah.
walker. And you saw the
Yeah.
opportunity to bring home a shopping cart. And
Yeah.
tell us what happened there.
So I was with my sister, and she had to run into a grocery store. So she goes, "Don't go anywhere." I look at her like, "Yeah, right, I'm going to go somewhere, right?" And so then she left, and I saw a shopping cart. I go, "Oh," to myself, "that would be perfect." So I took it, and I don't know how I did it, but I got it in the back of her car. It was an SUV,
Uh-huh.
and then she was driving away, and she was looking at me because I was laughing to myself. And she goes, "What's so funny?" I said, "You'll probably be mad at me." And then she looked at her rear view mirror, and she saw the car. She's like yelling at me, but I go, "I only borrowed it. I'm going to bring it back." She goes, "They have cameras there." Blah, blah, blah.
She was worried the
I go,
police would be stopping by her house.
"Yeah, yeah." So I said, "No, go home. Take me home." And so she goes, "Oh my God." So I went home and had the shopping cart, and I used to walk around the neighborhood like a beggar lady, but I didn't care.
How?
I would walk with that. That was my lifesaver
Yes, I'll
because
bet
it
it
gave me
was.
independence, and
Wow.
I could do it by myself.
Yes. So at
Mm.
what point did you ever take it back and give it back to the
Yeah.
store? You did?
Yes, I did. I told you I was just borrowing it.
Yes. You know,
Yeah,
I'll
and
bet
when
I
I
bet
could
if the
walk,
manager knew that
but
story, they would actually love it. Love it.
yeah,
Yeah.
I took back, and then I bought a baby carriage
Oh, you did.
at a
Okay.
yard sale, and then I used to walk around with the baby carriage. I didn't look as weird, but one time, a girl asked me if they could see my baby, and I used to put a blanket over the top of it to make it look like there was a baby sleeping in there.
Yeah.
I go, "Secret, there's no baby." She goes, "Oh, okay." Right.
She just thought you were a little
But
crazy.
yeah, 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 yeah. But
Oh
I
my.
don't care.
Yeah.
I'm not. But you do what you have to do.
So was that transition normal for you after having this traumatic brain injury? Before you would have cared. You were
Yeah,
surrounded by image,
yeah,
like you said. And now
yeah.
you don't care what people think about you. You're just all
No,
about recovery.
yes.
Now, was that a hard transition for you to make, or does it just come with the territory? Hey, I'm injured, and you also have an injury that other people don't see. I think
Yeah,
that's what's so interesting about brain injuries
huge.
is
Yes.
that you look fine. Maybe you do
Yeah.
have some residual
Mm-hmm.
effects, such as you are learning to walk again. And of course, when you open your mouth to speak, you sound different than you did.
Yeah. Well,
But just on appearances, it's hard to tell.
yeah. But what happens is I tell people right up front, I say, "I am not drunk and I am not deaf."
Mm,
Because of the way I talk, a lot of people think I'm deaf. And because of my balance issues, I swerve around a lot. And
Yeah.
so I look like I'm drunk
Does anyone ever ask you,
sometimes.
then what are you? Do you have to explain further, or do they?
No,
They're
they
okay.
understand, but I'm upfront with them.
Yeah.
People usually say to me, "Thank you for telling me that."
Yeah. Yeah.
And so one time, like, this is a funny story. One time I was coming out of leaving a Lions meeting, and there was a bar inside there, and guys were sitting out on the stairs, and they said, "Oh, you had a good time, didn't you?" I
Oh
just
boy.
went with it. I said, "Yeah, I had a wonderful time. Bye." Bye.
Yeah, sometimes it's
I
not
just,
worth it.
no. It's too much energy for me to, like, express to them.
Yeah. Well,
So,
let's then go to your tips. Uh, one of the things that was heartbreaking to me about your story was reading that, you have a daughter in high school. You used to be friends
yeah.
with all these other moms, or friendly,
Yeah.
I would say, not
Yeah.
exactly friends. And then
Yeah.
when you showed up to send your
Yeah.
daughter off to homecoming, they
Yeah.
wouldn't talk to you. What did that
No.
feel like?
I was like, first of all, I was like, oh, it was like shocking
Yeah.
because, well, I have been gone probably it was junior prom, and this happened to me junior year.
Okay.
So, my husband took her out and got her prom dress. So
Mm.
he took me there to the pictures, right? And the women were like, a few of them said hi to me, but really no one. I was an outcast out of the circle, and I
Wow.
realized it then. So I was like, whatever. And
Yeah.
guess what? I will never forget this.
No.
Never.
No.
Because my brain works fine now. I
Mm-hmm.
can think, I can't talk good, but my brain is pretty good.
Yeah.
And
I
so,
mean, for goodness sakes, you can write a book. That's more than most of us have ever done or will do. So
yeah,
what
I
tips
know.
do you have for, first of all, close family and friends? If something like this happens within their family, what tips do you have? What was most helpful and most encouraging to you? It sounds like your sister
Well,
was a great support and your husband.
yeah,
What did they do
yes.
specifically that people can take away from your experience?
Well, I guess you have to get up. Well, they don't understand. Being a caretaker is one of the hardest jobs in the world, so I commend anybody that is a caretaker. And eventually, we all will be someday at some point,
Hmm.
right?
Good point.
So, yeah, I think that people are not prepared for it, and you should financially prepare for it.
Hmm.
But a lot of people can't, and I understand that. But I think that a calendar is a wonderful tip, and a pill box is a wonderful tip, because I had so many doctor's appointments and 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 medication I had to take. Now I'm not on any of them anymore,
Hmm. Wow.
and I know. So, but the doctor's appointments were like, oh my gosh, keeping track of them, because you have to remember I was not functioning right in my head.
Right. So
So
someone else
it,
had to pick up the slack for you, obviously,
yeah,
and
yeah,
still carry on with their jobs
yeah.
and
So it
become,
was like
yeah, that is
double.
exhausting. You're right. You're right.
Yeah, it's double the work.
Yeah.
And so I tried to do everything I could myself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I used to, oh my God, I used to, like, I started doing the laundry. You would think that is a simple task, right? You don't think anything of it.
Right.
I would throw it in the laundry basket, right, and take it over to the stairs. My washing machine is downstairs, and throw it down the stairs in the basket. Yeah.
Yeah,
And
because
then,
you couldn't carry a basket and hold on to the rail.
No. And so a lot of people don't know that. It's hard, right?
Yeah.
They just take it for granted, right? Even feeding the dog, you take for granted.
Sure.
I used it because I could not mush up the dry food and the canned food together. So I would use my hands. And people would be, oh my God, gross. Oh, I would never. That is something I never would have done.
Right. It's safe to say you can't ever say those phrases, I would never do that, because you don't know what you will need to do.
No.
Wow.
No. So I used to do a lot of, like, people would probably think they were weird, but guess what? I got the job done.
Yeah. Whatever it takes. I think your new motto is, I'll just do whatever it takes. And I just admire so much your mindset, because I personally know other people who have had either a traumatic brain injury or a stroke, and they often say things like, I feel so useless, and why did God let me live through this? And I think as family members, one of the things I took away from your book is that it's important to maybe talk even about, I mean, it's a hard thing because you don't want to assume something like this is going to happen. And you just don't know if someone's going to have a heart attack or, a stroke or something like this. But the ability for a family, even if there's only 3 of you, to tag team and kind of come together and trade off maybe duties so that one person is not carrying the load of being the complete total caregiver. Or friends, friends that are nearby. Can I drive you somewhere? Can I take you to this doctor appointment and make notes for your husband? Things like that. I mean, that just makes me really think that we tend to leave people alone when they go through a crisis, and what they really need is a helping hand.
Yeah, that's where I am big into community. I think that is huge, because I equate myself with the car accident. You know how there's car accident on the highway, and you stop and you look and you slow down and then you speed up and go. Well, that was me on the side of the road. That's how I feel. Like a lot of people, they don't know what to say, I guess. But you don't have to say anything, just being there. That is all you have to do. I lost a lot of friends over this because they didn't come around. And I think a lot of people are afraid, right? And then, but it didn't help that I did not have a filter. And I would say things to people that I probably shouldn't have. But they did not educate themselves even a little bit on brain injury.
Right.
And so that is why I wrote the book.
Right. And that's where the word compassion comes in too.
Yes.
As like putting myself in the place of perhaps one of your friends, if this had happened, having the compassion to understand and just laugh about the fact that you're going to just spew things out of your mouth that pop into your brain because you don't have the ability yet to decide what's appropriate to say out loud and what do I keep to myself. Yeah, and that's probably very common with brain injuries. Is it something that you feel like you now have learned again?
I did, yes.
Really?
I have, yes.
Wow.
It's neuroplasticity. Now I know when to keep my mouth shut.
Well, let me ask you about a part of your book, and you also sent me a book a bookmark from the Brain
Oh, yeah.
Aneurysm
Hmm.
Foundation, and it
Yeah.
says it's a orange bookmark with capital letters, just the word think. Can you
Yeah.
tell me why that is so important to you? That word.
Yes, I can.
Okay.
Because my physical therapist, right, she came and had to do a home evaluation, right? So she put down orange duct tape everywhere. I was to be careful, right? There were certain spots like sharp corners on coffee tables and kitchen things, stuff like that, right? There were actually rooms I could not even go into,
Wow.
right? But anyway, so there was orange duct tape down around the house. So people would come over here and bring me things, right? And I had nothing to give them. And I hated that. So I realized that thinking everybody uses their device instead of, well, not everybody, I shouldn't say everybody, but a lot of people use their devices, computers, phones, whatever, to instead of using their own brain. And I think that your brain is your human computer.
Yes.
And so that is why. So I wrote, I didn't have anything to give people. So I took the orange duct tape off. I wrote think on it as best I could. I gave it to them. And they would stick it on their phones, on their computers. And someone actually made a bookmark out of one of them, right?
Uh-huh.
So I go, oh, that is a really good idea. So that is why the word think is important to me, and that's why I sent you an orange bookmark.
I love it.
Because I want
So,
people to be aware of, like, brain aneurysms and that type of thing. Any kind of brain trauma, TBI. I know it's aneurysms, but it's also any kind of TBI, concussions,
mm-hmm.
tumors, anything in your brain, right,
Mm-hmm.
that affects it. People do not realize because it is an invisible illness. And they say, oh, if you get a concussion, oh, no problem, you'll be fine. But it affects people different ways.
Right.
So you
I
can't say that to somebody.
right. And I
Well, you
I just
can,
want to
but
go over really quickly. There's a page in your book where you talk about some statistics which were very impactful for me. You said that there's a brain aneurysm rupturing every 18 minutes.
yeah.
And that ruptured brain aneurysms are fatal in 40% of cases. Of
Yeah.
those who survive, 66% suffer some permanent neurological deficit,
Yeah.
and approximately 15% with aneurysmal subarachnoid hemorrhage, or SAH,
Yeah.
die before
Yeah.
they even reach the hospital.
Mhm.
So when you
Mhm.
think about that, and some people know that they have an unruptured aneurysm and it's being watched carefully,
Mhm.
most
Mhm.
people don't know. You are a miracle. Does that ever strike
Well,
you every day what a miracle your survival is?
no, I don't look at it that way, but I do look at it as though I want to help other people.
Right. There's a reason you survived, in other
Yeah.
words. Mm.
Yeah.
Mhm. And so
Yeah.
we've just finished in September Brain Aneurysm Awareness Month. Is that correct?
Mhm. Yeah.
What did that month mean for you in terms of the message that you are trying to get out?
Well, I'm just starting, right? But the Brain Innovation Foundation has the the now they're the I said the biggest. They have
Mhm.
been around the longest. But I think right now there are 1, 2, 4 foundations I count. that are doing this also. I think that people are much more aware, and what we're all trying to do is bring awareness to people. And by this, right, Brain Aneurysm Month, they just acknowledge it in Washington, so it will be, I think, everywhere, right? And this month, what they did around here is they lit the Boston Bridge, the big one, they lit up red for Brain Aneurysm Month, and some of the buildings. And they also, on highways, put signs up advertising it, like the warning signs, and making people aware of it. And that is what Brain Aneurysm Month is for, awareness. And now the Brain Aneurysm Foundation came up with the new slogan. It's called Stop the Pop.
Stop the Pop.
And so people are more aware. They use a balloon to represent an aneurysm, and then they pop it representing, a bleed.
Okay, so
and that's what
aside from having headaches, and of course, you can't just go and ask for an MRI of your brain. What does Stop the Pop mean in terms of prevention or quick action? When someone has collapsed on the floor, how fast do you need to work?
You have to go fast. I was lucky that the hospital where I went, they work fast. And but a lot of doctors and medical professionals, especially in other parts of the country, do not have, they are uneducated about this. They do not even know. And so that is why we're trying to bring awareness to this subject, because I think a lot of people died before from it, and they probably they didn't do an autopsy on them, and so they just assume it's a heart attack or something like that. Well, there's a lot more to it. Now we're finding out.
Yeah, and in terms of prevention, it's interesting to me because we talk about stroke prevention, like there are ways to change your diet to lessen your blood pressure and things like that might cause a stroke. But I don't know if there's a way to prevent an aneurysm because it's often hereditary or it's a weakness. It's just something that is there that you don't really. It's just there, right? It's just kind of, you can't do anything to make it worse or better. It's just kind of there.
Well, I want to tell you this.
Okay.
After I was in the hospital, but my mother and my sister were tested because of me.
Oh.
And they found 2 aneurysms in my mother's brain.
Oh, wow. So there is a type that is hereditary.
Yes. They're just finding this out.
Oh, my word.
It's a very new thing.
Wow.
So, and I don't want to scare anybody. And that is not my intention. It's just awareness. And what they had to do, I think for people, they are ruptured, like myself, and then they are unruptured, like my mother's situation. And what they do, I would hate to be knowing that I had to have the operation. I would hate it. But I think that now they are so good at what they do.
Yes.
That it is
and they
good.
can now, if they know, they can put a stent in and things like that to do some
Yeah. And what they do is measure the aneurysm, and if it has a potential to rupture, then they will call it.
Right.
Well,
and
so my mother had one cause and watching the other one.
Oh, wow. So she had to have surgery. Wow.
Yeah.
And how about your sister with her headaches? Did it show up for her as
Nothing.
well? Okay,
No.
good. But she does
But
know
a
now.
lot of yeah. But a
Wow.
lot of people, they walk around not knowing. And we go to Washington every year because they do an advocacy day, right? And
Hmm.
so what we tell them is we want funding for this because we want to bring about awareness to more people because it is hereditary. They are just learning this.
Mm. Yeah,
And
so
so,
new information and new research is
yeah.
needed. Wow. That
Mm.
is really something. Well, Sheri, your story's amazing. I just commend you for this attitude that you have to reach out to people, and I know that just because brain aneurysm awareness was in September, that this is a year-round campaign for you.
Yeah, yeah,
And people can follow you on your Instagram, and I see you just telling your story and talking to people, um and that's another thing. I'm actually a vocal trainer. I help people speak with, clarity. And I hear from so many people who are afraid and their voice is just fine. Their speech is just fine, but they're still afraid to do what you do. And here you are with speech that it sounds great, but it doesn't
yeah.
sound like you used to. And you have
No,
every reason to have that hesitation, like, oh, I don't want to put myself out there. But I think that it goes back to your why is so big. Like,
yeah,
you have survived this huge, huge thing that who cares what you sound like, right?
yeah.
You
After
have a
this
message
happened to
that is
me,
more important.
yeah. And after this happened to me, I got like, I don't care anymore of what
Right.
people think. I don't
Yes.
care. And I don't know where they came from either because before I wasn't like that. But now I'm like, you get one life,
Hmm.
one life. So,
Yeah. And I think that's so important to remember that now you're going to help even more people
mm,
because of your boldness and your willingness to not care. Once we don't care what other people think about us is
yeah.
when we can make that big
Mhm.
impact.
Mhm.
So, what do
Like,
you think could be the biggest takeaway for our listeners today? Um, you know, I would like to say
just
if you know someone, be compassionate, reach out to help.
yeah,
Um,
yeah. Reach
and
out to people, and guess what? They don't want anything except your presence once in a while. That
right.
just be yourself. Just be there.
Yeah.
Go and have
And you know what?
coffee with
Prepare where
them.
you can and don't just walk in fear.
No, and don't think about what people think about you. It's none of your business.
That is so true.
No,
That is so true. Well, where can people
no.
stay in touch with you and get your book?
Well, on Amazon.
Okay, so the
They can
book's
get the
available.
book
I
on
will link it
Amazon,
in the
yeah?
show notes. They can get it on Amazon. It's a
Yeah,
great story of hope, and
yeah.
that's my
And
biggest
if
takeaway.
people, yeah, and if I like if people would leave a review because that would
Okay.
help.
Hmm.
And
And how about your
yeah,
Instagram? I know you're active on Instagram.
oh yeah, I am. I put
Okay.
things on there all the time.
Okay, and it's Compassionate Snob there.
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
just like the book title. So
yeah.
look for Sheri at Compassionate Snob. I will link all of this in the show notes so you can just go below this podcast and click on it and go right to her Instagram and right to the Amazon page to purchase her book. And
Yeah,
if you
my
have
link is
anyone,
in my bio.
okay, great. Well,
Hmm.
we'll connect all that. And do you have a website where people can
I
connect
do,
with
but
you?
guess what? I
What?
don't. I'm ashamed to say this, but I don't know how to use it yet.
Okay. Well, you know what? They'll just have to message you through Instagram. That's how
Yeah,
you and I connected, right?
yeah,
I
yeah,
love it. You found me, you reached out to me, and we started chatting back and forth, and I thought,
yeah.
"Oh, I people have to hear her story. This is so important for us to hear." And thank you so much for being my guest today.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you for having me.
Okay, this has been great, Sheri. You take
All
care
right,
of yourself
Sheri.
and
Thanks.
stay on with your message.
I'll see you in the gram.
Okay.
Okay. Bye. Thank you.
Wow. Talk about resilience, right? And grit and steadfastness. I am really in awe of this woman. And I'm so happy that she reached out to me. If this has been impactful for you, would you reach out to me and let me know how we can further this conversation? I will put links to the show notes, how to reach out to Sheri, how to let her know you heard this podcast, how to reach the Brain Aneurysm Foundation. And I think we will be doing some more episodes about this for those who have experienced a stroke or a traumatic brain injury or any kind of a brain injury, as well as those who are caregivers, because I think so many of us end up falling into that space as well. And, there's just so much that we can learn from each other in this space. So I just thank you for joining me today. I hope this has been really helpful to you, and that you will take Sheri's story with you. And as she says, think.